Hey there, this is Jason, and today I want to share with you one of my latest projects that I just wrapped up. And this project falls in line with a lot of the other projects that I've built here in my yard, and that I wanted it to serve multiple purposes. So if I can give you a couple real quick examples here in the yard, one of the first things I built was this main entrance to my orchard. This was just a chain link fence when we moved in, and when I built the gate, I made sure that I had this, pergola that goes up and over it that I've since trained bougainvillea to grow up and on top of. So even if you're not walking through the gate, it just provides a beautiful backdrop to the yard, and I love looking at it even if I'm not walking through it. Another example that I featured in a video prior is my garden shed, and that's over my other shoulder over here. It's a 20-foot by 10-foot shed. It's massive, and I don't need all that room for my tools. So instead, I divided the space up, and that's actually 1/3 chicken coop, 2/3 garden shed. So my latest project falls in line with that multiple purposes idea, and it's something that I built right outside the entrance to my shed. I want you to take a closer look at this in just a moment, but this is my latest build. It is a potting bench, hand washing station, Kiwi Trellis structure. It does all three of those things, or at least it will do all three of those things once that kiwi there grows up over the next couple years. So let's go take a closer look at what I put together. This is about as done as it's going to get, and I've been working on this project little by little all summer long, and here it is, the beginning of September, and I finally have a finished product ready for a little party that we got coming up next weekend. So here's what I have. I have a countertop here. These were concrete slabs that were left over from the prior owner. I repurposed them. I built the supports to match the dimensions of the existing concrete slabs. Currently, they're just being held down by gravity because they are extremely heavy, but at some point I will properly support them with concrete screws and anchors. But in any case, those are there. This is an old kitchen that we had when we were doing a remodel, and it was extra, and I decided to bring it out here. It is not the highest quality sink in the world. It already has some rust spots, but considering I'm using this to wash my hands after handling the chickens, it's going to work perfectly. Underneath here, I plumbed with PVC. This is not drinking water. This is just hand washing and fruit washing. Well, I guess if I'm washing fruit, it's still going to be consumed to an extent, but mostly a hand washing station. I have a shut-off valve here, and I always make sure that this is off whenever I leave, just because I don't trust having a sink holding back all of the water that is coming down my side yard. It's a lot of pressure, so I always turn that off at the valve, and then I turn it on when I need to use it. I plumbed both a hot and cold. This is just room temperature water, whatever it is off the street, but by doing this, I can turn the faucet in either direction, and I'll get water. So I can have it in the hot position, I can have it in the cold position. I don't have that weird thing where it only works in one direction and the other direction is dry. So that was a little extra work, but not really. It was an extra, $2 in parts, and it was pretty easy to do it. Once I was gluing everything, that was easy. This is being drained into my orchard. So I do have a drain set up here that runs to a 1.5-inch PVC pipe that goes down. And if I can trace it, it's the larger pipe that I'll eventually bury in the ground, and it goes behind my shed and into my orchard, and it waters some of my trees, not directly, but indirectly. It does seep into the soil and it gets in. I don't want to pump hand soap directly on top of one of my plants. So it does go back there, it does moisten the soil, but it kind of disperses the water throughout the orchard in a small area. Underneath here I have some storage. It's a little bit of a mess right now, but underneath I'll have spots for pots, and there's some perlite, so I'll have some potting soil and other things like that. I do intend to use this as a potting bench. Up top here I bought some 8-foot sails. They're triangular in shape, so you don't get the full 8 feet because they taper inwards. And you can see right here, a perfect example right here. You can see that it's not a straight triangle, so it does taper in, and you don't get as much coverage, but I did take 2 triangular 8-foot sails. I overlapped them, and the most important thing for me was to shade this sink, because this is stainless steel and this was getting extremely hot to the touch. It's already warm under the shade, but it was scorching hot when it was left directly out in the sun. So I do want that to be covered, and it is the majority of the day. The rest of the benches, it would be nice if there was shade, but it's not a deal breaker. Over here is one of my new additions. I've always wanted to grow kiwi, and I've failed with fuzzy kiwi, and I'm trying again with hardy kiwi. So this is a Monrovia plant. It is called Magic Kiwi, which is a hardy kiwi, and it's a pretty popular plant that you can pick up possibly even at Home Depot, although I got this one at a local nursery. And the best part is they've planted a male and a female in the same pot for you. So you plant this in the ground, you train it up, and there's no need to buy an additional plant, which is what I was running into with the fuzzy kiwi. You could find either all females and no male, or sometimes the reverse was true. You find all male plants and no female. You're sort of at the mercy of who has purchased what before you, but with this, it all came in the same pot. So I'm experimenting with growing this in a pot that's a 20-gallon pot. I created my own soil mix, nice and sandy and loamy down at the bottom, a little bit of mulch, top dressing there, and I'm going to experiment with how well this will grow in a pot. I hope it grows well, because underneath here, this is hard, compacted. It might as well be concrete. It is not going to work really well for direct planting. And then my other option, to plant back behind the wall where the soil has a much higher quality to it, it would have made this awkward transition up and over the wall before it reached the fencing material. So I tried to go with the pot route, and I'll let you know how that's working out. And then finally, this fence, this trellis. So this is 16 feet long. I did use the post spikes. I really like these. One, you can get the full height of your 4x4. In this case, the post all the way down at the end is almost a full 8 feet. So instead of sinking some of it in the concrete or sinking some of it in the ground and only having what's left over, maybe 5 or 6 feet to work with, you get the full height. And they were easy enough to work with. They're a little bit more expensive, but this is hopefully a one-time thing, and it just makes life a lot easier if I need to replace something in the future. If that metal rusts out, or if my post gets rotten or damaged somehow, I'm not digging out a massive concrete block, which is what I had to deal with over here when I replaced my kids' play structure. So I have been there, done that. I don't want to do that again, especially not for structures like this. But this is this 2x4-inch fencing material that I've used everywhere in my yard. I love it because it comes on a roll, and I buy it 100 feet at a time. I just bought a new roll, and I have the rest of it sitting right here, ready to be used for who knows what. But it is so versatile for me. I use it for my espalier trees. I use it for my legit fencing that separates my orchard from my yard. And here in this case, I'm using it to create this trellis for my kiwi to grow on. So that's a 16-foot run right there. And based on what I'm reading about this kiwi variety, this should be covered in a year or two's time. Last couple comments here. I did use cedar for the trellis. I wanted that to look a little nicer since I can see it from the house. But then underneath the potting benches, I have pressure treated wood just because I didn't feel like the aesthetics were necessary down here, down at the bottom. This has been an interesting build. I'm happy to finally have it in place when we have guests over and they come and feed the chickens, or they come back here and maybe get a little dirty or messy back here in the orchard. This is wonderful to be able to send them right here, right to the exit of my orchard, and have them wash up and not track in whatever it is that they have on them into the house. So this has been fantastic for me. It's great when we have guests, and I can't wait to stress test it next week. We're going to have dozens and dozens of people over from my kids' school. We're going to go ahead and bring some of those kids back here, and it's going to be a lifesaver to have them wash up, you know, in a spot that's more than just a hose spigot. So this is a little bit more formal, a little nicer accommodations for all that. So here's the final product. I always like making sure that whatever I build has multiple purposes. I've done that a number of times in my yard, including with this barn passion fruit trellis that I have here, right? So I always like making what I'm building serve multiple purposes. And in this case, I have a sink, potting station, potting bench, kiwi trellis, all in one. And I'd love to update you in the future on how it's looking in the next several years.